Everyone, and welcome. The Dallas Housing Coalition's Housing for All webinar series is back. My name is Austin Holmes, and I am honored to serve as your new host and as a member of the Dallas Housing Coalition Steering Committee. A little bit about me, a little background. I'm based here in Dallas, Texas, where I work as a senior development associate for Dominium. I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area and graduated after playing football at Cornell University up in upstate New York. Um, I work as a senior development associate for Dominium, but prior to Dominium, I worked at Crow Holdings in their private equity arm, doing all different types of real estate investment there. I'm most interested in equitable development and innovative solutions to today's housing strategies. So, on behalf of Dominium, we are proud to step up and sponsor this year's webinar series. Now, today is the 40th installment of the Housing for All series, where we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it is truly big enough for everyone. We hope you have been enjoying these impactful one-on-one conversations with DHC members and other community leaders who are Dallas's strongest advocates for keeping Dallas affordable. Today, we are joined by Leslie Vujicic. Leslie is the president and founder of In This House, a nonprofit that helps provide housing to those who need it most. At the time, she had been a successful trial attorney in Dallas for over a decade, but felt compelled to use her skills to make a meaningful impact in her community. After taking a step back from her law practice, she launched In This House to meet the growing demand for affordable and attainable housing for working families. Welcome to the show, Leslie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And honestly, after listening to your background, I feel like I should be interviewing you, Austin.
No, we're excited to hear about In the House and learn a little bit more about all of the work that you're doing. So let's start off with an easy one. What inspired you to start In This House?
So I'd say it was a confluence of fortunate events. First, as you mentioned, I had been a trial lawyer for a number of years and loved it. But I felt like in my soul, I had kind of checked a lot of boxes career-wise, and I wanted to figure out how I could take the skills I had learned as a lawyer, which probably my best skill was a problem solver, and transition that into something that I could make a more tangible impact in my own community. And I first got interested in housing issues because my husband is a real estate developer. And for the last 10 or so years, their company has been focused on affordable housing, building a significant number of mixed income and low income properties across the state of Texas, but primarily in Fort Worth and Houston. And even though his company is based in Dallas and we live in Dallas, wasn't really doing any of the work here. And that got me really focused on how far behind I thought Dallas was in addressing the housing needs and looking at the gap of what developers were building and what the city of Dallas needed, particularly when it came to addressing affordable housing for ordinary working individuals who work, but so they don't qualify necessarily for like the traditional housing assistance that people are more familiar with, but yet they can't afford to find a quality, stable place to live in our city. And so that's why I launched In This House, was to try to be one more avenue or pathway to help address that issue.
Got it. That makes so much sense, and there are so many cracks there. So that makes so much sense. So I understand your mission focuses on partnering with local governments, private developers, and really using both public and private funding to build high quality, mixed income, multifamily developments in truly opportunity rich areas and give residents the tools to thrive. So can you speak a little bit more about, how In This House fills these specific gaps and kind of the strategies you use?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, of course, and we're still a pretty young nonprofit, launched in January 2021. But over the last couple of years, the board of directors and I have really tried to look at what are we and what are we not. And so we've developed two primary goals. First is just to try to build more affordable housing, and we're doing that in a variety of ways. One is directly working with developers such as yourself or Ohala to actually create more access to affordable housing. We've done that particularly in the last couple of years, while we've been in construction and development mode through
Mhm.
our public and community education initiatives, where we've been working with different community leaders to have just conversations about what neighborhoods see, what they need, what they
Mhm.
want, and trying to change the narrative about what affordable housing is and why we need it in our city. And lastly, looking at policy and zoning reform that we really need here in Dallas. So that's how we've kind of focused on our first goal. Our second goal is I felt very strongly that we have to look at housing holistically. So
Yeah.
that means we can't just stop when we put a roof over someone's head. And especially when you're talking about multifamily rental properties, which is what we primarily focus on, is
Mhm.
how do we give our residents the tools to really thrive
Yeah.
and a pathway to home ownership if that is what their goal is. And so we're doing that now by launching a series of programs at each one of the projects that we work on, where we provide these for free at
Mhm.
no cost to the developer or to the residents.
Mhm.
And we have programs that range from adult education, children enrichment programs, after school programs, and community programs. And so I'm very excited that we're finally this year launching those and looking at, how do we make our residents actually get to whatever their goals are?
That's huge. A lot of different things there that are so impactful. The aspect of, really helping the residents after the roof's over their heads is huge because and sometimes we're talking about people who are in need of that help. More so than some of the other groups. And so that's really impactful. So I really love that. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that you see between developers and communities that they're working in terms of just building that community support that's needed to make these beautiful communities work?
I'd say the biggest obstacle, and this probably won't come as a shock to you, Austin, is distrust.
Mm.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of folks just don't trust developers. And what we've seen a lot over the last couple of years is some people really don't trust our city officials and our city staff.
Mhm.
And that makes it so difficult to have productive and meaningful conversations about projects on the ground.
Mhm.
And oftentimes that leads to a lot of misinformation and misconception about what developers are trying to do.
Yeah.
And so I've personally tried, and I know a lot of other groups have too, to focus on how do we change this conversation. And look, not that does not mean every multifamily project should get approved. That does not mean that every apartment complex should just come into single family homes. I
Mhm.
don't think so. I think we have to really look at our neighborhoods and see what makes sense to protect our existing neighborhoods, but add to them because the reality is we need more homes. And so, how do we break down that distrust where people are actually listening to one another about what community needs
Yeah.
and what developers are really trying to do? And they're
Yeah.
not all bad developers out
Yeah.
there.
We like to think so, but yeah, that trust piece is huge. I mean, people's biggest asset more often than not is their home. And so I every time I'm in a community meeting, I definitely am trying to be cognizant of that. That there's and there's been checkered history in the past with developers as well. So, the reason to distrust sometimes is prevalent. What do you have any kind of success stories or examples of a opportunity or a situation where you were able to kind of really gain some trust that helped a project move forward?
Sure. I have two that come to mind. One I'll say is not in the city of Dallas, but to our neighbors just west of us in Fort Worth. And I can't take credit for it because while we're involved in the project now that it's live and leasing up as of February, we weren't involved in the development stage. But Tobias Place is a wonderful example of working with the community to make the development even better. And
Mhm.
it is a tax credit deal that is for low income, 60% people that make 60% of the median income or less, and there's some 50 and 30%. And the city of Fort Worth was really proactive in looking at a neighborhood that was facing gentrification, needed to have housing for folks that wanted to stay in their neighborhood and not get priced out.
Mm.
But from the beginning, the city and the developer really worked with the neighborhood to say, what do you want to see in your neighborhood? So Tobias Place is actually named for Toby Tobias, who was a community leader in that neighborhood. He worked for the city of Fort Worth for many, many years. He coached little kids, teams in the area. And I think that helped the community get behind the project of, someone's not trying to come in and change our neighborhood, but someone's
Mhm.
trying to come in and do something good for it. And the neighborhood association was very involved all along the way. And so it just shows when you work together,
Yeah.
a project can really amplify the neighborhood character, and it doesn't have to detract from it. Another one that's close to my heart is one that will be open and leasing up in the end of this year, hopefully late fall, early winter.
Mhm.
And that's on Garland Road in East Dallas. I live in East Dallas, and it's
Yeah.
going to be called the Hayden, which is named after my son. And, we had a hard time with that project. We had a lot of neighborhood opposition, even though the project is on a state highway
Mhm.
and three-fourths of the project is either highway or commercial. There's
Mhm.
a segment where it backs up into single family homes. And we had I can't even tell you the number of meetings we had with the community and with our local
Yeah.
councilwoman and the city planning commission. And we're very thankful that the project moved forward. But I will say that the project is better because of the community input. I think there were changes made to how the project will look and feel that is a direct reflection of the community getting involved. And I think it came out of that zoning process as a better project. Now, it hasn't opened yet, but I'm seeing the progress that's being made. And I really do think once it's up and running, I think the neighborhood is going to embrace it because it's got a lot of wonderful elements that were implemented, like I said, because of the community engagement.
That's yeah, that really rings true to me. Yeah, there are it's tough sometimes, being a developer and being wanting to get to that closing and move forward with the transaction. But so many times those community meetings do ultimately, it seems, make the ultimate community a lot better. Because and also, not just the physical community itself, but just how it's received in the area, because then people feel like stakeholders, they feel like they've been a part of it. And so I think, really commend you for the work you did on that. And then on the other one you discussed, that's very awesome as well, because the gentrification problem is very, very huge, and it's always tough to handle, because on the one hand, there's the fears that you are gentrifying, you are driving up the value and changing, the historic character of the neighborhood. But at the same time, you understand the market forces that, look, this is going to happen. And so are we going to secure units for people of different income levels or not? And so it's very much a challenge whenever you're kind of in that mix of gentrification, to kind of rush in and provide housing, so that, the neighborhood character and the people who have really made the neighborhood so special can remain a part of it. So that's really cool. That's really, really awesome examples. Building off of that a little bit, what role do partnerships with developers, property managers, local businesses, other nonprofits, what role do those sorts of partnerships play in the success of your work ultimately?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for a project to be successful, you have to have diverse partners at the table. And especially given the variety and depth of needs that we have to address in the housing space, you really just can't go at it alone, either as a for-profit developer, as a nonprofit, as a city or municipality. You really got to bring them all to the table. And the projects that I've seen that have collaboration as a central focus, not only more oftentimes actually get built,
Mhm.
but as we were just talking about, the projects are better because of that collaboration. I mentioned to you Tobias Place over in Fort Worth. Um, that project would not have happened but for the different departments within the city working together. We probably had a dozen departments that all had to work together to
Mhm.
address historic stormwater and sewage issues for that neighborhood that had been long neglected. There, were all sorts of zoning and planning. There was a train station nearby they had to work with to get, where the train wouldn't sound its, horn as it's
Yeah.
coming through the neighborhood. But you had to have, city staff work closely together across the departments and also just financially. I mean, the city and the county had to work together to make that investment into that neighborhood and make that a priority. And so, I think that's so important. And I've seen other projects that are a little outside of our wheelhouse, but that we've been involved with on the permanent supportive housing space,
Hmm.
where there's two different CASAs over in Fort Worth that Ohala's been involved with, and have been involved in CASA Part 2, where the first one was addressing chronic homelessness using COVID funds to take a long extended stay motel and convert it into permanent supportive housing and get 120 people off the streets. They had to use that money in 4 months. And so they had to find, uh, buy, rezone, and convert in 4 months. And that only happened because you had the housing authority, you had a private developer, you
Mhm.
had the public hospital over there, JPS, you had the city, all working together and bringing a lot of different resources and perspectives in to make a project like that happen. And I'd love to see more of that, particularly in our city, of
Mhm.
bringing different groups, for profit, nonprofit, and government entities together to really make some of these projects happen that otherwise can't.
Yeah. You said 4 months to do all that?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting here like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't
That's
I think some
amazing.
people, lost a few years of life
Yeah.
working on that project.
Yeah.
But
Crammed
it
it all in those 4 months. Yeah, that's
But it did so well
yeah.
that they wanted to do another one, and the
Mhm.
one that we're involved in that just opened last end of last year is explicitly for families experiencing homelessness. So you have to have children.
Mhm.
It's about 50 units, and
Okay.
same thing. It's a collaboration with multiple different organizations that came in and said, "Look, most families are not chronically homeless. We have people that are situationally homeless because they lose a job, they have a medical expense, their car breaks down, they can't get to work, whatever the situation is, and they need a stopgap. And the shelters do not have space necessarily for these families. And that's really not the best place for our families to be living, that just need a little bit of help until they can get back on their feet. And so I'm very proud of the work that Casa de los Sueños is doing, and any role that we can play in projects like that.
That's amazing. I really I'm happy you bring that up and highlight, folks that sometimes are situationally in experiencing homelessness. Because it's often not thought of, a lot of times people who aren't, in real estate or thinking about housing or the built environment, when they think of homelessness are not always thinking about that. They often underestimate how many people are, one medical bill, one car accident, one a tough thing at their job, away from being in that situation. And so that's really incredible that they're able to help in that situation. So kind of building off of that, speaking maybe more about Dallas in particular now, as you note, on your website, Dallas has a growing need for housing, specifically for those who make less than the median income. This includes nurses, teachers, police officers, childcare providers, retail workers, folks who we all believe deserve and we want in our communities to have, stable housing, for their families. So I'm curious from your perspective, what policy changes, or community actions could make a really big difference for these folks?
Yeah, I mean, zoning reform is crucial to addressing the issues that we see. I mean, the reality is, um, I think construction costs are so high, development costs are so high, and we've done nothing with our zoning laws other than make it more difficult and more expensive to build. And so we have to address those, but in a way that makes sense.
Hmm.
It changes is hard for everyone, but I think there, luckily, Dallas has done a great job in the last 3 to 4 years of focusing on how do we address these things through, Forward Dallas, through the bond program, and now looking at zoning reform. And there are some zoning reforms that are more controversial,
Yeah.
but I think there are some that to me don't seem controversial that we should all get behind, like certain by right entitlements or streamlining the permitting process better, prioritizing or incentivizing developers to build affordable housing either as a whole or
Mhm.
as part of a development. And so those are well, I would say big changes,
Yeah.
but relatively easy changes or
Yeah.
smaller changes that I think most people can get behind. And I think they will move the needle a lot more than maybe some of these controversial ones that
Mhm.
that a lot of people talk about more frequently.
Got it. Whenever you're thinking about that and engaging with folks about those types of changes, those discussions, what sort of pushback do you get? Just curious.
On those in particular, I haven't heard a great response. Like, I mean, I get it, like on the parking or ADUs or some of the other ones that are a little more controversial.
Mhm.
Look, there are a lot of arguments around. But I haven't heard, significant resistance
Mhm.
to ones that where you're talking about incentivizing developers to actually build the kind of housing that we need here in the city of Dallas. I
Yeah.
think most people are on board. Now, how we do it, the mechanisms for doing it, I think, deserve a lot of our thought and attention.
Yeah.
And I think people get scared of anything by right.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're talking about there. But I think if you put the right guardrails in place, I think you could
Mhm.
alleviate a lot of fear. People do worry. Okay, you're going to come into my established single family neighborhood and you're going to build a multi-level apartment complex. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to go that far. I mean, I don't think most developers don't want to build an apartment complex in the middle of a single family
Yeah.
neighborhood anyways. That doesn't financially make sense.
Yeah.
And so I think if you look more at our transportation corridors,
Mhm.
highways, larger streets where we have things that are already zoned commercial, but
Yeah.
they're sitting empty and they're
Yeah.
not in anyone's neighborhood, they're just adjacent to neighborhoods. Those are areas where if we could allow certain things to be done by right, if you're building affordable housing, I
Yeah.
think could make a huge impact and not draw the concerns and fears that people have that live in single family homes that want to protect their neighborhoods and protect
Yeah.
their investment, which makes a lot of sense.
It does. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And yeah, it's I've found that sometimes in having those discussions, it's helpful to frame it as like what's the alternative? So if it's a situation where it is just zoned commercial land that's sitting vacant, it's like, well, this doesn't look all that great right now anyway. So maybe some nice affordable housing that, brings some more families to the community could be a really, really good thing. And the housing it's new and it's high quality, and so it really does overall improve the look and the feel and really the overall value of the community in which it's built. So that's
For
awesome.
sure. And a lot of people, they'll say, well, the alternative is we want a Trader Joe's or we want a Whole Foods.
Mhm.
And the reality is, retailers are not going to move into areas unless it makes sense for them. And they look at rooftops and they look at income levels. And so by bringing in quality housing and
Yeah.
quality residents to an area, you can really spur other development along that road, that corridor, that section.
Hmm.
And I think it's a thing that people sometimes struggle with of looking at kind of the longer term plan for the area.
Yeah.
But I think once a few of these developments that I know the city has been working on over the last couple years come online, I'm
Hmm.
optimistic that people will see how that can uh, you know, transport an area that maybe, like you said, has empty lots or things that don't look that
Yeah.
good and aren't attracting the retailers everyone want, but
Yeah.
really transform it into something that's a livable, walkable community.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's great to have, a few case studies like that, so that way you can point to things and know that there are examples where it's worked. You're really speaking my language now, because it's, those are the conversations that are often tough to have, because people say, yeah, why not the Trader Joe's, why not this or that, and it's like, look, they have capable real estate analysts on their team too, and they're not unaware about this land for sale. They're probably aware of it. They run their numbers, they have their calculations, and the market tells you what the truth is, and there's not they're not buying it. That's kind of where they're at right now. And so those rooftops and having a little bit more density and a more robust community often can make the difference and change how they look at it. Um, all right, so I have a question. What advice would you give to individuals or nonprofits or businesses who want to support housing stability in their communities a bit more, but they really just don't know how to start?
Go to a city council meeting. I mean, I know that sounds pretty basic, but look,
That.
even though my husband is a developer and I was a business trial lawyer now for 15 years, I only knew a very small amount of the things related to housing. It was so outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And so the first 2 years of in this house, I either went in person or watched on online
Mhm.
pretty much every city council meeting. I went or watched the Housing and Homelessness Solutions Committee meetings. And you just will really learn a lot from what are the issues that we're grappling with here in the city? What are types of developments that are coming forward? And so that's an easy and excellent way, especially now that the city has made it so easy to log in and just watch these meetings remotely,
Yeah.
to learn about the issues. And of course, as I'm sure our fearless leader, Brian Tony would say, join the Dallas Housing Coalition. I'm so proud to be a founding member of it because it was launching right around the time I was launching in this house.
Mhm.
And again, I really didn't know a lot about the housing space, but there are people that have been working in this space for so long and on lots of different spectrums on the for-profit side, nonprofits addressing homelessness, banks and other, community leaders that are looking at these issues from their perspective. And so just going to the meetings and hearing what other folks are doing, it just shows you a way to get involved. And, one person, I know it sounds silly, but really can make a difference. I truly believe that. So
Yeah.
those are a few
That's
things I do.
great advice. Yeah, I love the city council advice. I think, I talk to friends and different people, and people are often very surprised at just how much really does happen at those meetings. Real decisions about, the community that we live in are being made at those meetings. And so it's really important to be aware of those and let your voice be heard. It's really cool.
Yeah, and not to get too political, but there's a lot of people that are disheartened with what's going on the federal stage
Yeah.
and want to tune out. And I get that feeling. We have so much being decided that impacts our everyday lives here at City Hall, that people don't pay attention to. And so if you're looking for another avenue to be focused on, looking at what's going on locally, is so critical and is a great time to get involved.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's definitely a good time to get involved locally. So tell me, what's next for In This House? Are there any upcoming initiatives or expansion plans that you're particularly excited about or would like to share?
So I kind of mentioned that we just started leasing up at Tobias Place. I'm so excited. Last year for North Texas Giving Day, we raised $25,000 to provide scholarships to any of the resident children to provide free after school care at the community center that's right
Yeah.
across the street from Tobias Place. So we are just now getting in tenants that have children, but are super excited to get them plugged in and getting that after school childcare provided to them. So that's something I'm very excited about. We also, in this house, furnished their children's library on site. And we stocked kind of an emergency pantry for residents. When you're moving in, there's all sorts of last minute household goods that you need. And so we've been able to stock things all the way from, laundry detergent, cleaning supplies, feminine hygiene products, things like that, that people might just need a little assistance in, especially during times of moving. So I've been super proud to be part of those. And then, as I mentioned, the Hayden will be coming online late fall. I'm very excited about some of the programs that we're going to be doing there. It's a different community than Tobias Place because it's a mixed income. So half of the community will be market rate apartments, and half the community will be people that make that 80% area median income. Which I just was looking at the new numbers that came out April 1st, but
Yeah.
for an individual, about $65,000 annually. And
Mhm.
if you look at the city of Dallas, our starting firefighter salaries, our starting police officer salaries, if you're a teacher in years 1 through 6 in DISD, those
Mhm.
are all people that would qualify to live at places like the Hayden,
Absolutely.
where their rent will be reduced, proportionate to their income levels. And I'm very excited to be part of that project, and can't wait to see it actually open its doors.
Yeah, that sounds like just a truly amazing one. Yeah, that'll be very, very cool. That'll be very, very cool. It's important to have those members of our communities have viable places and beautiful, safe places to call home. Um, is there anything we did not talk about today that you'd like to elevate a little bit?
I actually think we covered it all. I mean, gosh, I don't know how we were able to get so much in a short period of time, but I'm just excited to have been included in this conversation. And I thank you, Austin, for the work that you do, and the Dallas Housing Coalition for its efforts, because I think it does take all of us to figure out this problem and work creatively and collaboratively within our city to figure out, what do we need? What do we want? And how do we address it? Because the problem's not going to go away on its own. And it's going to take people like you, Austin, to figure it out.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. You're right. The problem we face is truly enormous. And folks in Dallas, folks all over the country feel that. But with folks like you, it feels as though we have the opportunities to build the partnerships, the connections, and keep the conversation going that can actually facilitate the solutions, to really start making a dent in this large problem. So thank you so much, Leslie, for joining us and providing your unique perspective with us.
Great. Thank you.
Before we sign off today, we do encourage you to do a few things to further support housing in Dallas. So first thing is we'd love if you could attend the Dallas Housing Coalition's next event, our Dallas City Council candidate meet and greet at 3 to 5 p.m. on Thursday, April the 17th at the Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity's wall shop. Additionally, please follow us on socials for updates on how to get involved with the Dallas Housing Coalition, and stay tuned with our Housing for All webinar series. Please also visit our website at Dallas Housing Coalition to learn more about our member organizations like In This House and to join the coalition. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in to our 40th Housing for All webinar, where we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it is truly big enough for everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll